My name is Carolyn Fernald. I'm the marketing director at Passerelle. Passerelle is a data systems integrator, and we're the developer of Data Rocket, a modern data stack for financial services, which we'll talk a little bit about later. With me today, I have Bruce Adamano, the business director at Passerelle, Eric Tressler, a senior vice president at Equifax, and Greg Spencer, the senior sales and solution engineer at Segment. Most importantly, we have Peter Love, the Chief Digital Officer at Berkshire Bank, who's helping to spearhead a 5-year digital transformation at the bank and is going to tell us all about what he and his team have learned. Bruce and Greg and Eric and Peter, can you turn your cameras on, please? Thank you. I'd like to thank our friends and technology partners at Talend for helping to sponsor this event. Attendees who registered with their corporate email addresses can look forward to the wine or snack gifts you selected at registration, and I'll get those in the mail tomorrow. I'm going to take the attendance report at the end of this webinar, so please stick with us to the end if you'd like to receive your gift. Also, we'd like this event to be as interactive as possible, so please submit your questions and we'll try to insert them into the discussion throughout. We're going to start off our presentation today with Bruce Adamano, Passerelle's business director, who'll help set the stage for why we're here and why we care about digital transformation in the first place.
Thanks, Carolyn. Nice to meet you, everyone. As Carolyn mentioned, I'm Bruce Adamano. I'm the business director for Passerelle. And if I were to put it in one sentence, today's webinar is about how to drive revenue and efficiencies by deeply knowing your customers to best serve them. So I want to touch on 3 things here and describe the challenges to build that customer picture. 3 things come to mind. First of all, COVID-19 has acted as a catalyst. There was already a shift taking place from customers coming to the traditional brick and mortar branches and regional offices to conduct business. Folks were searching for new channels. And that shift to mobile, online, alternate channels, it was across all generations, from baby boomers, myself, to Gen X, to millennials. And the second point is this change is here to stay. Based on a recent survey, more than 30% will continue to use these alternate channels as the way they want to interact with you as a financial institution. And so behaviors for shopping online versus showing up in person, coming to a financial institution for advice to discuss needs and select products, and using alternate payment methods other than cash or checks. That's going to continue on long beyond when COVID-19 starts fading away in the rearview mirror. And that's applying pressure. It's applying pressure on financial institutions because there's a need to deeply know your customer. Most customers have multiple financial institution relationships. They have deposits in multiple banks. They maybe have a separate entity they're doing investment work with. And those financial institutions that work hard to most deeply know their customers are going to grow share, are going to grow their revenue at the expense of those organizations that don't work hard to deeply know their customers. And that needs to be enabled by digital banking. Carolyn, next slide. Digital banking is challenging. It's not easy to do. And today's outdated technologies are not rising to the occasion. There's 4 core components of building a digital banking platform. First is assembling the customer picture. Data about a customer is stuck in siloed systems. I'm Bruce. I maybe have $5,000 of deposits showing up in Jack Henry, a core banking account. And maybe I've taken a mortgage in Encompass and I have $100,000 first mortgage and I show up there. But there's bits and pieces of me scattered throughout all the transactional systems. And if I want to use that data, it's stuck in those silos. And even if I could get it out of those silos and throw it in a lake, throw the data in one place, to have it be usable, it has to be made trusted. Is the Bruce that has $5,000 deposits in Jack Henry the same Bruce that took the $100,000 mortgage? Or is it 2 Bruces, each Bruce having one relationship with the bank? And to make data trusted, IT can't possibly be the subject matter expert of every data set in a bank. There needs to be the business involved, signing off as a data steward, a business analyst, that most closest to the data, knows the data, know whether it's accurate or not. And so it's business working with IT to make data trusted. That's hard to do with today's tooling. Third, if I can land all the data, master it, make it shaped, make it trusted, I only know what I know based on my interactions with my customers. How do I know if Bruce is a multimillionaire or not? He has $5,000 in my deposit account. That's all I know about him. What's his net worth? Who is Bruce? Do I really know Bruce? Or am I just getting a portion of his business? Because if I can know Bruce more deeply, I can maybe better serve him. And he's not showing up in person. So if he's not showing up in person, I've got to use data to try to get to know Bruce. And so I need to enrich what I have about Bruce with third-party data sets. I want to know maybe Bruce's net worth. I want to know Bruce's credit score, his ability to pay, maybe the value of his house, whether he has liens against his house, what his equity position is in his house. I want to know how many loans are being sold in my footprint area last month, so I know whether my market share is growing or shrinking. I need my data enriched. And it's not easy to assemble a picture using my own data, make it trusted, let alone add third-party data in the mix. And finally, if I do those things right, how do I make money? How do I monetize that? How do I get insights? How do I know where I'm overperforming or underperforming and grabbing market share of first mortgages in my territory on a monthly basis and see trends and know where the money is? Where am I only getting maybe 1% market share for HELOCs and my competitors are getting 99%? So I can have a focused campaign to go after that. How can I visually see that and then activate, segment a list to go after, activate that list, push a marketing campaign, and measure revenue lift 30 days from now? Doing all of these things is critical to assemble that one picture, enrich that picture, make that data trusted, so I can then make money, monetize that. And hey, I'm best able to serve my customer if I can actually see them. With all of that in mind, it gives me great pleasure to introduce Peter Love, Chief Digital Officer of Berkshire Bank. We've worked with Peter for over a year now with our Data Rocket partnership. And I turn over to Carolyn and Peter. Thank you.
Thank you for that overview, Bruce. That's great. And now we're really excited to spend this time talking with Peter, the Chief Digital Officer at Berkshire Bank, about his experience leading a digital transformation. Peter, thank you so much for being here. Thank you,
Carolyn. I'm looking forward to the session.
Great. So Peter, can you tell us about your role and responsibilities at the bank?
Sure. As Bruce, fantastic introduction. You hit on a number of really important points there that are important for all of us. My role at Berkshire Bank, I'm the Chief Digital Officer, and really I can break my role up into three main categories. Number one is the customer experience. I'm responsible for making sure our team is creating the most positive experience from our customers, both internally and externally, as we possibly can. We put the customer in the center of every process discussion we have at the bank. Secondly, focus on the consumption and availability of data. We're sitting on a treasure trove of data from various acquisitions and the large number of transactions that flow through our bank every day. So making that data available and getting it in the right person's hands to help customers as well as internal colleagues. And third is the integration and fintech partnership. So a big part of what we're doing at Berkshire Bank is creating the digital platform for the future and making sure that systems can connect and speak to each other seamlessly is a critical part. So it's customer experience, data, and integration is really the main focus for us.
So you are in the second year of a 5-year digital transformation project called BEST. What are the goals and visions of Berkshire Bank during this big undertaking?
Yeah, I think Bruce hit on a number of really important points, right? The customer environment is changing. People are expecting different experiences from their banks. From a strategic perspective at Berkshire, we are, a socially responsible, purpose-driven bank serving the communities of our footprint. We're hyper-focused on participation and support of those communities. So from an overarching perspective, everything we do at the bank obviously is to help shareholder value and customers. From a tech perspective, there are a number of goals and objectives that I have, but we take a step back and think about how we can enable the best plan. So for us, it really starts with the executive vision. We're very fortunate to have a very strong, focused executive team. Early on, we made a decision to basically brand our transformation efforts. And you mentioned best earlier. So for us, we're trying to be the best we can, and that is Berkshire's exciting strategic transformation. And what that does really is it enables us to have a common language, a common vision. We have a dispersed footprint. We've got over 1,500 employees at the bank serving our customers every day. And really by branding the transformation effort, from a very complex technical effort to something we can all relate to and rally behind has been critical. So best is the overarching, and then from best, while there are multiple work streams and stakeholders and complexity, we've really broken up the vision into three main components. So how do we digitize the bank? How do we optimize the bank? And how do we enhance the bank? Again, all rolling up to best. So really, that's been a big part of our initiation of the transformation.
So how did you develop the digital transformation roadmap as you were getting ready to undertake this transformation?
Yeah, it's been a journey. Like I said before, it's a very complex mission and goal that we have collectively across the entire institution. I do actually have a slide here, Carolyn. I think it's called digital maturity. If you could bring that up, it might help a little bit. So this is a high level overview. We started our plan back in 2019. Identified a 5-year outlook and really focused on how are we going to mature ourselves as an institution from a digital perspective. So as Bruce mentioned, consumers expect new experiences. COVID accelerated a lot of the transformations that are happening across the market, and those things aren't going away. We recognize the need to invest in our technology. And if you look at the upper right-hand corner, you'll see a lot of the business drivers for us. And again, back to your original question, everything is driven by being best, right? So how do we create, a socially responsible omni-channel bank to allow customers to interact with us as they see fit on their schedule and the contextual information that they need to help them with whatever their particular purpose is at the time. And how are we removing barriers to serve our communities and participate in our communities and fund our communities and really be active participants in the communities we serve. And of course, we need to, as a bank, how are we improving our financial performance for this new market and how we're gonna compete in this new space. So all of those things drive us as a technology organization. And of course, the things down on the lower right is kind of how we started our plan. All right, we know what our mission is. How are we going to do this? We recognize the need again to move from legacy architecture to a more modern platform. And we'll talk a little bit about that today. And a number of the partners that we were talking to today are critical to that goal. In today's day and age, the idea of having a single source core provider, in my opinion, is something, it's kind of an old idea, right? I mean, to compete in the new technology, it takes a whole ecosystem of partners. There's not one bank that I know of that can do it all on their own. Even the big boys are partnering with fintechs and startups and data aggregators and everything else. So I think there's a fundamental shift that started years ago about leveraging the ecosystem, and it's a big part of our mission. And of course, to do that, to create the modern infrastructure, to improve the customer experience, for us, it all relies around data. We've got mountains of data. We've got data in silos. How do we bring it all together and have one source of truth from a reporting perspective, but also from a know your customer perspective, from a 360 perspective, how are we sharing and aggregating this data in a meaningful way for our internal and external customers? And I think Bruce touched on a couple of things in his intro as well. Data governance, while maybe not always considered to be super important at the outset. Without it, you get yourself into a mess very quickly. So data governance, oversight, understanding, data stewardship, data owners is critical to our current plan. And of course, as mentioned, a sole provider is not the answer from a technology perspective, nor is it from a data perspective. Third-party partners are critical to everything we're doing in 2022 and beyond. So long way of saying it, I guess, starts with the mission again, and then our role at the bank is really to identify the partners and the systems that support the mission.
Great, and we have our first question from our audience here. So, and I think it kind of touches on some of what you were just speaking to with partnerships. But the question is, what resources, technical, monetary, and personnel-wise, did you need to invest in to make this happen?
Yeah, again, fortunate to have an executive team that supports the mission and is committed to the mission, which comes along with planning, discussion, and iteration of both, technical requirements, but also funding and human requirements. So my team is an agile group, and we've got 10 resources that focus on the three tenets I kind of talked about before. We have a customer team, we've got a data team, and we've got an integration team. And again, we are fairly light as far as the fintech and digital space, but we have partners that we rely on that are really act as extensions of our group. But so a lot of it for us at Berkshire is all about business justification. Asking for a resource doesn't, create a resource is a business case for everything we do, and an ROI that needs to be defined and understood in order to commit to the resource.
That's great, Peter. Thank you. What challenges did Berkshire Bank have as you approached the project, and how did you overcome them?
Yeah, there are a number of things. Again, it's a complex effort, right? And it takes a number of different stakeholders from across the bank. I think one of the things I've seen is really the idea that this is a technology effort, and I would argue that it's not. It's actually more of a cultural transformation than a technical one. At the end of the day, some of the technical components end up being easier than getting everybody to come to the table, to understand what the business functions are that are required, to really digging in to understanding how all those pieces are connected together. So for us, early on, in addition to the branding of the effort, we also identified a transformation group. We meet every 2 weeks. We have leaders coming to our group from every part of the business. We have an active dialogue, an active prioritization list, and an opportunity for people to come to the table that may not have had a voice in the past. It's expected now that everybody is participating and wanting to participate because they're seeing the results of the investment.
Mm-hmm. So how is Berkshire Bank using data now, and how do you plan to use data to achieve your business goals?
Yeah, so we've been fortunate with support and not only internally, but again from our partners. So we're using data for many of the things that we talked about before. We've got a very robust customer relationship management program. We've got a robust fintech partner network. We've got a trusted and predictable data ingestion and availability process. So we're bringing those pieces together to get information back to, our first step is internal colleagues, making sure people have the information they need to service their customers the best way they can, making sure that we've got context and an understanding of each customer from a 360 perspective. And then also a big push in 2022 is extending that out to the digital space on the customer front. So again, using many of the same assets and investments to help with community investment, appropriate product placement and packaging, and helping with guidance and support of our customers in their markets.
Great. So Peter, we have a follow-up question here about your point about the cultural transformation at Berkshire Bank. And the question is, what have been some of the best ways that you've been able to drive change management in this regard? And maybe this is a great time to talk about your transformation team and some of the success that you had with your call center stakeholders.
Yeah, no, it's a great question, and I think all of us probably experience challenges when the business is working to support their customers, hit their targets, identify needs and support, and we're trying to get people to see new ways of doing things, and recognizing that maybe technology could facilitate where an Excel spreadsheet will do. Maybe there's a quicker way to do something, a better way to do something. So for us, the transformation work group has been incredibly important. Like I said, we meet every other week. We bring discussions to the table. We prioritize and identify and then actually score efforts by business impact and technical complexity. So it's a true partnership between the business and IT to say, well, this is really important. I can say, well, it's technically not very hard to do. Let's move that to the top of the list. Whereas something that may be on a fringe but require a larger technical investment would fall down. But I think the most important thing, and the thing that's really gotten the traction, is the success stories. And we're constantly looking for evangelists. We're constantly looking for people in the business that want to work more with IT, that want to see some of the tools we have, and then can take those back into their pods or into their business teams and really show their colleagues, what they're doing and how they're doing their jobs differently. Carolyn mentioned, a recent success was in the call center, where we've grown very quickly over a number of years. We've been kind of an aggregation of a number of different sources, and our call center had to deal with that, right? They had 7 different systems to look at. Customer would be on the phone. We have been able to leverage a lot of the partnerships with Segment and with Passerelle and others to totally transform the call center experience. So instead of being on the hot seat and trying to do a swivel from chair to chair to figure out how to service the customer, we've been able to put one single pane of glass in front of the call center. I've got some quotes and some testimonials from the call center managers themselves, just extolling the benefits of the system. Really, I mean, it's helped them with turnover. It's helped them with just morale in general. I think anything IT does is you kind of notch some wins, but when the feedback from the business shares how it's changing their lives and how it's changing the interaction with the customer, those are the ones that matter. And so we're constantly looking for in that every other week session, we actively look for people to bring their experiences forward and to kind of showcase. We do a show and tell on how somebody's process may have changed based on some of the improvements we've been able to deploy with their support. It all starts with them. If they're interested and they want to invest the time in getting it done, we bring them back and give them an opportunity to share with their peers, how it changed. I think that's the most important thing for us.
Absolutely. So after we speak with you, we're going to hear from Segment and Equifax. So I was hoping you could share how Berkshire Bank envisions using solutions like Segment and Equifax, and how critical do you think third-party data is to your decision process? I'm folding in a Q&A, so I don't want to catch you off guard there, but the second component was something that came in through Q&A.
Yeah, the partnership with Segment and Passerelle and Talon and Snowflake and I could go on and on. It's incredibly important. We've got a lot of data from our primary system. Like I said, we actually are building a better bank, not a bigger bank. But for a long time we were building a bigger bank. We kind of grew up through a series of acquisitions, so we have tons of data. And we're working closely with our partners to ingest all of that into one single source and to use that as the source of truth, as I mentioned earlier. And things like the Customer 360, instead of having to pull together from 7 different origination systems, I can now go to one single source and identify every account and every interaction that customer has with the bank. On a flip side, from an executive perspective, I can bring in all my origination pipeline data and bring that all together. So our executive team can have, some leading indicators as to what's happening at the bank, and use data from our single source as a true kind of executive dashboard with KPIs and metrics, kind of indicating where we're headed as an organization and where risks may exist. And then going a step further with our customers and our business lines. I mean, business line customers, we have the single source, but the Equifax data or the segment data enriching, as Bruce mentioned, a lot of the transaction data. I get a query string or data in not the most user-friendly format from a number of systems and partners. Somebody like Segment is able to work with me to really normalize that data and give it back to me in a way that I can share with our business lines, and our business lines can obviously react to that information with more insight and with offers or support services that can help that particular customer. So there are a number of ways we're enriching our first party with third party data, and it wouldn't be possible without a lot of the modern tech back to that technology we're using and the partnerships we've established with our partners. I hope that answers your question, Carolyn. I think you had two in there.
Yeah, you answered a lot of questions there. Okay. Thanks, Peter. So we're running short of time. So you're going to have one more question here. Okay. And then if anyone has questions for Peter, if you can go ahead and ask them, and then we'll hold until the end of the presentation and we'll answer all the questions then. So thank you so much, Peter. Just one more question, and that is, how do you measure success personally and as an organization?
Yeah, that's a great question. We measure success as an organization. Clearly, like I said, we've identified the best objectives, and we've got critical performance indicators for each one of our pillars and each one of our work streams. So we are always measuring to be a better performing bank, a more invested bank with our communities, a mission-driven, purpose-driven, socially responsible bank. So there are a number of ways that we're tracking, and we do it every month, if not more than every month. But I mean, in a corporate way, we have sessions with our CEO and with our executive team that outline exactly how we're tracking our success. So it's a constant mission for us. And then on a personal note, from the IT perspective, obviously we've got our own KPIs that we're driving to, but a lot of it, I think, was a question before about that transformation group. We measure it by success stories and anecdotal information. And if we're doing our job right, all of that is translating into actual revenue and performance for the bank from a business perspective. But our mission is to collaborate, to make data available, and to surface it in a way that people care about it. And that comes with internal partnerships are critical for us, and constantly trying to get that optimized. I could talk forever, so I apologize.
Thank you so much, Peter. Your thought leadership in general is really wonderful to be around, and listening to you speak today brings a lot of value to me. I hope it brings value to everyone on this call. So thank you so much. Without further ado, and please, you guys, people who are on the webinar, if you have questions for Peter, keep them rolling, and then we will get to those at the end of the webinar. But now we're going to spend some time with Eric Tressler and Greg Spencer. Hi, Eric, how are you?
Good.
Hi, Greg. So we talked about Berkshire Bank's plans that include Equifax and Segment. And now we're going to spend a couple of minutes talking with you both. I'll first introduce Eric, a senior vice president at Equifax, and Greg, and then Eric will hand it off to Greg, who's a senior sales and solution engineer at Segment. They're going to talk with us about their data solutions for financial services before we hand it back to Bruce, who'll talk to us about Data Rocket and how Data Rocket ties all of this together. So Eric, we will start with you.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Carolyn. And Peter, that was fantastic. The story that you tell about Berkshire and the leadership that you're showcasing is tremendous. Really an extraordinary amount of progress, and the vision is fantastic. And frankly, I really enjoyed your recognition of the necessity of the broad involvement that it takes to go on a transformational journey. It takes a team, and you certainly have a plan and a vision for the Berkshire team. And speaking of teams, I am proud to be a part of the team that Passerelle Data has assembled. First rate, best of the best, across the board companies, but most importantly, a commonality of solution and customer orientation. So I'm Eric Trussler with Equifax, and I have a host of responsibilities, but among them is the privilege of managing our relationship with Snowflake, with Segment, with Talent, and with Passerelle. Let's go to the next slide. And so I suspect most of you know about Equifax. The prism that we like to think of ourselves through, and the ideal, is helping consumers live their financial best. And you actually heard just a touch of that with Peter at the end as he talked about how he measures success and some of the anecdotes, right? Those anecdotes are the company doing well and servicing their clients, both commercial and consumer. And so on the right side of the screen, you see some ways in which we have measured ourselves sort of across the US or across the globe. But we're a company also that has gone through a transformation, certainly a theme, Peter, that you shared. And to me, transformation is a deliberate choice to be something different. And when you're done, you really, quite frankly, can't imagine what it was like or to go back. And we have gone through a transformation as well. And we are the first in fully cloud credit bureau. And that fully cloud notion, frankly, allows us to tie back to what Bruce started us with. As Bruce described, how do I know Bruce? How do I know Bruce, the individual? With our integrated data fabric in the cloud, we begin to see Bruce, the person, Bruce, a member of a household, Bruce, a property owner, and understand some formats and some understandings about what is that property. Perhaps even Bruce, the business owner or business principal. So that transformation is enabling us to move forward in ways that can help Berkshire and help financial institutions, and frankly, beyond financial institutions. Carolyn, let's move to the next slide. So if those outcomes that we just saw on the right rail are our goals, sort of how do we get there? And the way we do is through our customers and our partners, quite frankly, and quite directly. Companies like Berkshire, able to use our data assets and our decisioning tools across the value chain, be that in marketing, as Bruce elegantly described, who are your best customers? What capacity do they have? Where and how can I find them and more like them? All the way through account opening and each and every engagement you have with your customers. That identity, authentication, and fraud, frankly, those are the cornerstones of a digital experience. If you encounter someone who has an encounter that has suspicious activity, then the appropriate amount of friction for that engagement might be heavy friction. But if you identify someone looking to transact with you and they look as a friendly, then it should be a light and friction light experience, maybe even a predictive experience, one that acts as if we know something about the customer and perhaps what they might be interested in. Through, as was described earlier, the analytics that help you understand where markets are going, where sub-markets are going, where geographies, where growth is occurring, and even into collections. And we do that across industry. Certainly today, we're focusing in on financial institutions and credit unions, and I'll talk a few examples of that. But as you move across from auto to mortgage and to telco and even retail and healthcare, Equifax participates along that value chain. So let's hit the next slide. So our our relationship with Passerelle and the Data Rocket, and ultimately with the clients, is in part underpinned by just a fantastic technology called Snowflake. So I mentioned that we had moved fully to the cloud, and Snowflake is a technology that allows for lightning fast, secure, private shares to be able to light up insights against your customer base and prospects. And we have put some of our most powerful tools on Snowflake, enabling it to be easily accessed and frankly configured to reflect the trade area, to reflect the geography, the scope and scale of what you need, not US wide, but perhaps a state or two or four. And so here are a handful. Let me tell you just a bit about them. So our B2B Connect file is frankly the richest set of business firmographics in the United States. And I say that with confidence. It has over 5 million more business locations than the next closest and perhaps more well-known competitor. Full corporate hierarchies, all verified data, nothing self-reported. And so customers use this data to create commercial profiles for their best customers. It includes business failure and absolute probability of default predictions. So recently, a multi-state regional bank was launching a commercial product. They needed some high quality leads. They looked to us with this B2B Connect data, conducted market segmentation, infused some additional contact information on top of their first party data, and found 67,000 new prospects, and in 6 weeks generated an 8x ROI. We also have our economic insights. So this is the data that Bruce talked about. When you think about the person, the household, most very important is an accurate understanding of the financial well-being, the financial durability, the wealth, the income, the credit, the ability to pay. This is used in both you're lighting up your first party data and finding those that look like your best customers. We have an example recently where we had a client that wanted to understand prepay. And so they looked at their prepay history and then appended income 360 and then determined that certain income levels were driving a higher proclivity to prepay, and we're able to segment their customers that way. So whether it's targeting, prospecting, cross-sell, upsell, this is the most accurate insight against the consumer that there is. Property data, this property data is nationwide, allows you to find from LTV to CLTV, the first lien amount, the interest rates, assessed value, last sale price, all the things that you would think about that are attendant with each and every property. And our credit trends and analytic data set, both are about the markets. So these are data sets based upon the entirety of the US credit file, anonymized, made available, and able to be configured just to what you need. So it's not only the Fed or the largest of the banks that want access to this kind of insight. It's all financial institutions. And we're able to, because of the power of Snowflake and because of the partnership with Passerelle Data, bring the types of insights where are HELOCs growing, as Bruce talked about, geographically, where are your customers and what are your peer groups? How are they performing to show you the strategic areas of growth? Much more to talk about, but I do want to make sure that we spend some time with Segment. My good friend, Greg Spencer, with a great company, Segment, you're going to enjoy what they are able to do with your transactional data.
Well, thank you very much, Eric. That was very well done. And let me just echo some of Eric's earlier comments as well and say that I appreciate, as does Segment, the opportunity to to be here today and participate with our partners at Passerelle and Equifax, and of course our mutual friends, Peter and others at Berkshire. So just a bit of background about me before we dive into Segment and how we'll be participating in Berkshire's journey. Prior to joining Segment 3 months ago, I spent the previous 13 years at Metro Credit Union, a $2.5 billion in assets credit union based in Massachusetts, where in my most recent role, I was Senior Vice President, Strategic Intelligence, overseeing Metro's data analytics framework and go-forward strategy, data integration, business intelligence efforts, and the like. And along those lines, I was an advocate and champion for bringing Segment solutions into Metro's arsenal. And with Metro, having just completed a multi-year technology transformation project that included replacing its core and online banking providers remotely during the pandemic, nonetheless. I have an acute appreciation and admiration for the path that Peter and his teams are on at Berkshire. Clearly, they have put in a ton of careful effort, thought, and planning into their roadmap. And personally, I'm incredibly excited to watch their execution on it and assist along the way. And for Peter and for the attendees here, that's my long-winded way of saying just how jealous I am of what you have in operations right now, because I can tell you firsthand just how impressive it is. So with that, let's dive right into Segment and what Segment does, how it does it, and how it sets itself apart from others in the market. Founded 14 years ago, at its heart, Segment is a data company with an intense focus on cleansing and categorizing the never-ending variations of transaction strings that enter the walls of a financial institution at any given time, thus making this rich source of data and insights on their account holders easily accessible for them, contextually valuable, and most importantly, actionable. And Carolyn, if you want to jump to the next one. So when you look at the core offerings that Segment provides, you're going to find that these themes of accessibility and actionability resonate throughout all of them. Starting on the left-hand side here, and specifically on our merchant payment cleansing, or MPC, and customer insights driven by key lifestyle indicators, or KLIs. When talking about these solutions, I like to call them different sides of the same coin. Each of them rides on the rails of the cleansing and categorization framework that we have built, and that I'll get into more details momentarily. The difference between the two, though, is that the focus on MPC and its output is the transaction and merchant definition itself, while the KLIs are enriched data tags that focus on the customer or member or account holder. Now, before getting into the weeds here, though, you're also going to see that we have a growing portfolio of AI predictive models that leverage these rich KLI attributes on an FI's customers. And last but certainly not least is our marketing automation platform that allows FIs an easy-to-use interface to build audiences off of these enriched KLIs and deploy highly targeted, highly personalized, multi-channel campaigns through an ever-growing list of channel integrations we have built with the major core online banking and other ancillary digital providers. In fact, just a couple of weeks ago, we released a press release announcing our new integration with Constant Contact for email. So believe it or not, we do all of that in terms of our integrations and the ingesting of core and transaction data and third-party data without PII. So thank you, Carolyn. And so what I just described, you can probably term as being like a high-level overview. What you're looking at right now, though, is very much in the weeds. And this is just a tiny sample of what we like to call the dirty strings of transactions that can appear in an FI's data. If you scan the screen, you'll likely notice a number of different iterations for the same merchant, such as Wells or Chase. And while some of these may seem self-explanatory for what they are, the reality is that many are not. And without an extraordinary understanding and significant resources dedicated to this craft, efforts to wrestle this for institutions of any size will ultimately likely fall short. Due to no fault of their own, transactions and other important data points will be left behind inherently in using your typical string searches or wildcard searches and so forth. And Carolyn, if you want to jump to the next, thank you. And here's the reality. This slide that you're looking at gets more outdated every day. If I'm not mistaken, as it stands today, we have over 170 million transaction variants defined in our library, of which individually there are hundreds of thousands of permutations for providers like Wells, Chase, and Amazon. In the instance of Wells, some may have Wells, some may have Fargo, some may have WF, and then there are others that don't even have any of those. Multiply those scenarios across industries, payment networks, merchants, and recognizing that it will never stop, you hopefully begin to understand the issues of scale for being accurate here on your own. And that is where Segment comes in. With our processing, cleansing, and identification framework, driven by the library I mentioned, as well as AI and machine learning rule engines for capturing new entries, we also have a team of dedicated library research scientists providing the necessary human supervised approach. This allows us to provide continuous relevancy and accuracy for new transaction types and merchants that will never stop. There will always be the next new service like Disney Plus. There will always be now new crypto players, new buy now, pay later offerings that we react quickly to and add to our taxonomy. In real life terms, what you're looking at now is an example of how this works. The transaction string that you see on the left that starts with WDW is what we receive. And while you may be able to decipher that it's Walt Disney World, you're unlikely to know based on that transaction string itself, unless you've researched it, that it's a Walt Disney World Vacation Club purchase. So on the MPC side, what you would get back as appended data to the transaction is the middle column, the merchant name, logo, and 2 levels of categorization. On the other hand, if this was the KLI output and based on the customer, you would get similar data, but instead you'd get the tags that indicate that the customer is both a traveler and a vacation. So bringing this back home and how Berkshire can or may use these data sets in their new Snowflake environment. As someone who recently came from the FI side with a dedicated focus on data analytics and strategies, as I mentioned, I'm incredibly excited about what Berkshire will be able to do with them. Specifically in the use cases for competitive win-back, SWOT analysis, understanding total product outflows to competitors and trend shifts over time, capturing new entries or new challengers in those categories, identifying recurring subscription or mobile app payments, such as coffee shop mobile apps, Amazon Prime, et cetera, that could be flipped from their current payment rail to a debit interchange rail, effectively turning what was a cost into a revenue line item, with just possibly a little enticement, to the customer for swapping out their ACH payment credentials for their debit card. How powerful these can be for Berkshire and for those able to grasp the depth and the richness of the enriched data transaction and the customer insights that we're able to provide. So, moreover, combining all of this data, as Peter showed, with their other data assets in Snowflake, whether it becomes a star schema that Passerelle builds or layered across multiple dimensions, there are literally untold opportunities for competitive advancements ahead of them. Just really, really super cool stuff. So last but not least, given the overall discussion here and our relationship with Snowflake, it also bears mentioning that Segment is committed to further innovation in the cloud and in particular Snowflake. Along those lines, early last month, we announced an exciting brand new partnership with them, whereby we were able to now offer our MPC solution embedded in their environment without the data ever leaving the customer Snowflake instance. And they can rapidly retrieve cleansed transactions in an entirely secure fashion. Segment and Snowflake are both incredibly excited about this innovation. We recently conducted a data jam session with them that is viewable on our YouTube account. And our Vice President of Enterprise Architecture, Lance Cuthbert, will be presenting on it at the Snowflake Summit in June. So with that, that's it for me. Thank you again for having us participate. Happy to answer questions later on. So back to you, Carol.
Thank you so much, Greg and Eric. Those were great presentations and really just the tip of the iceberg as far as the opportunities that are available for enriched first-party and third-party data. But to get started on this journey, financial services need to trust their data. Bruce is back to tell us how Data Rocket for Financial Services establishes a well-governed data lake that is scalable and future-ready. Are you ready, Bruce?
I am. Thank you, Carolyn.
Okay.
We built Data Rocket. If I were to summarize in 4 words, our product, which is powered by Snowflake and Talend, allows a financial institution to assemble data, enrich data, make data trusted, and let you act on that data in an accelerated way. It's a set of code and blueprints, frameworks that run on core technology. I was born in 1962. A bit of a nerd as a kid, Marvel Comics fan. I look at what we've done is assemble the Avengers, powerful each on their own, brought together as a team, can achieve incredible things. Data Rocket under the hood consists of Snowflake first and foremost, cloud platform, The power is there when you need it. Easy scale up, auto scale out, and on a pay-per-use basis. They have a unique way to do data sharing, allowing our friends at Segment and Equifax to have their assets made available and shared instantly and securely in your warehouse, your instance of Snowflake. And so it's now part of your know your customer pattern and platform. And finally, data is a dial tone. Snowflake has eliminated the old active, passive, log shipping, mirroring, all that stuff that went along with legacy databases. All that's gone. Data is now available as a dial tone through Snowflake. We went all in 5 years ago as one of Snowflake's first system integrators and resellers and a data marketplace partner and a powered by Snowflake application, Data Rocket. Second is Talend. It's great to have a cloud platform, but there's some capabilities you need so that it's not a swamp. You don't want to just land data in a lake and let it be. We went all in with Talend 5 years ago as well. We were Talend's first US VAR and one of their first US resellers. Talend manages data movement in batch or real time. We've yet to meet a system we can't connect to. And some of these finance systems, Fiserv DNA, FIS, Jack Henry, there's eclectic sets of systems out there that are hosted or on premise that are tricky to connect with. We've yet to meet a system we can't connect with and move data into Snowflake. Once it's there, we want to process it. Talend alone is a Gartner leader for data quality. Again, assembling that picture so we have a master golden record, making it trusted for fuzzy matching, deduping, data masking, all of that can be done with Talend as a Gartner leader. Business and IT. As I described before, IT can't possibly be the subject matter expert for every data set across a bank. Talend has multiple personas. One of them is for a business, a data steward to play a role in that data is an IT and business working, data is an IT sport, as a team sport working together. So IT has a persona, business has a persona, they work together as one to make data trusted. And finally, data catalog. They have a data catalog product that is already integrated with the transformations. So to look at glossary, dictionary, definition of what is a branch, what is a loan, that capability can be lit up and quickly integrated as part of this platform. So you now have a well-managed, well-governed lake warehouse architecture to assemble, make trusted, enrich, and get value out of. The other partners are key. You've heard from our friend Eric and Greg at Equifax and Segment, the power that third-party data and your own enriched first-party data can bring to the table. So you now have a wide view of who your customer is beyond just what you know about them and how they're doing business with you. You now have many, many, many columns of attributes about your customers that you can do some decisioning on, maybe some pattern matching and detection on, which is where Data IQ comes in. Data IQ is our partner for doing machine learning. So if you hire a data scientist or have a data scientist team that want to mine this trusted data to detect patterns, predict who's going to leave your bank next month based on who left last quarter. Data IQ allows you to add in enriched data. And finally, the final mile. How do we get insights and make money? So we go with the Gartner leaders for Tableau or Power BI for visual analytics. That said, if you have a standard visual analytics tool, it can plug in and use the data that's been assembled, enriched, and made trusted. But we lean in on Tableau and Power BI because they're the two clear Gartner leaders for people to make get the aha moments and cognitive connections on decisioning. Where do I want to launch a marketing campaign to grow my HELOC sales? And finally, Flywheel. They're another powered by Snowflake application that we're also a reseller of because they allow you to segment the data. I want all customers that have $5,000 in deposits or more, that have a net worth of this or more, that have a HELOC of this size or more in this zip code area. I want to segment the data fast I want to push it out to a marketing campaign, Salesforce, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, launch that campaign. I want to 30 days later measure whether that campaign was successful, so I can do more of those campaigns. So Flywheel allows you to segment, activate, launch a campaign, and measure revenue lift, allowing you to monetize the data and all the effort you put into shaping the data and making it trusted. We build on top of this stack with our Data Rocket software. Carolyn, next slide. So Data Rocket has software. It's a set of framework and code that allows you to assemble, make the data trusted, enrich it, and then take action. On the assembly side, we have a well-governed assembly framework, dynamic data ingestion to land the data with change data capture following rules of SDLC. So data is landed into the lake structure in Snowflake and is properly positioned for use with an audit trail and pulls the changes so the lake is always current and data you can trust it's going to be there when you need it. We also have our enterprise blueprints. Your users double click on a dashboard to make cognitive connections. We have role-based access control from dashboard back to the warehouse. For trust, we have a mastering data framework. You can master data with Snowflake and Talend without having to buy $1 million master data management solution. Is the Bruce that has a $5,000 deposit account in Jack Henry the same Bruce that has that $100,000 HELOC in Encompass? We have a mastering framework that allows you to master the data to have a golden record you can trust. We have an operational dashboard that looks at Snowflake for capacity planning, looks at the virtual warehouses, and helps you predict and project the warehouse capability you're going to need. So it also tracks data movement from Talend. How many rows of data were moved last night? Did everything go successfully? Are there any areas of concern we need to quickly troubleshoot? Our operational dashboards give you insights to keep the environment healthy. We have a data quality watch. It's not just making data trusted, but keeping it trusted. So our quality watch product makes sure the data stays trusted. For enriching, we have a machine learning framework. So when you build a machine model, we want to call it on a scheduled basis, feed it data, and take the latest predictive insights and put it in Snowflake so they can be used when you need the data. It's there in the dashboard for you. Our friends at Segment and Equifax, we know their data dictionaries. We have written talent jobs to be able to have that data be part of your warehouse. So again, it's a know your customer picture that's been enriched, leveraging Snowflake and Data Marketplace. And finally, ACT. Like you've heard earlier, at the end of the day, you want to empower the business, consumer banking, commercial banking, to have them be able to make decisions using data with a smart dynamic dashboard. And then based on decisions, what product offers do they want to make to what people at what time, be able to then make those offers with Flywheel and drive revenue for the bank. So Carolyn, that's all I wanted to say regarding Data Rocket. Back to you.
And thank you everyone for sticking with us so far. I know it's the end of the day for some people who are tuning in from the East Coast, but we do have a couple of questions. Peter, you're going to be back in the hot seat for a minute, if you don't mind. And the question is, how do you ensure your executive team understands the impact your work has on the overall business objective?
Yeah, great question. And just before I answer, I just want to thank these guys again, Bruce, Greg, Eric. I mean, I think some of my presentation was about the importance of partnership, and that we're not doing this alone anymore as an institution, right? We got people we really trust and rely on for thought leadership, and I think you guys just did a fantastic job, and look forward to continuing to work with you guys. So thank you for that. It's always an important piece, right? We're investing a lot of money and time and effort into these new technologies that are literally transforming the bank. We're just hyper active in communicating our successes. Really, there are a couple ways of doing it. We have a structure at Berkshire Bank. It's something called the Tech Steering Committee, where I present every month to executive leadership about, we have a very clear plan and we march to it, and I have to report back on it all the time. The other thing that we have is, I mentioned the transformation group that meets every 2 weeks. That group, I also we have an output from that directly to what we call our digital transformation group, which is the most senior people in the organization, and we meet with them every month as well. So we have a couple of different channels. We also have a robust communication plan. We've got an intranet site. I've got an incredibly talented group of people, on our team, as well as business line partners that are willing to participate in videos, in webinars, in short stories or case studies. So we have our own communication channel that we're publishing to on a regular basis. So we become basically a live feed across the bank, so people get a taste for what's happening in the digital transformation space.
Okay, great. Peter, I have another question for you. What group is the hardest or was the hardest to get on board, and how did you get them on board with your plan?
Yeah, that's a tricky one. Everybody's got their own quirks, I guess. Honestly, there hasn't been a tough group to get on once we get them kind of in the door, right? If the hook is set properly and we're able to show some benefits, I think just the opposite happens. So you could argue that maybe, operations team may be a little tough. I think they're used to maybe doing things a certain way, or maybe comfortable with manual process. And I think historically there may have been an interest in kind of augmenting that with more staff, to kind of shore up things. But I think we're living in a new world, and I think everybody's experiencing outside of the bank, in their personal lives. People understand things are changing and expecting different way of doing things. And I think the kind of customer experience, again, colleague experience, is just as important as an end customer experience. So just allowing me to see data in a different way and interact with data in a dynamic way. And I think once they get a taste, our backlog is pretty long at the moment.
That's great. So Eric, I have a question for you. What is Equifax doing to make it easier for regional banks to get access to your data?
Yeah, that's a great question. And part of it is our partnership with Snowflake and other cloud providers, which allows the cloud-to-cloud sharing of data. Part of it is the linking that we're now doing within our own four walls, so that instead of having our own data silos that you have to suffer through, instead we begin to link inside of our four walls to provide the complete picture of an individual. An example of making data more accessible is that analytic data set that I mentioned. So that is 28 billion rows. It takes us 2 weeks to provide that to the Federal Reserve of just pure data movement. In Snowflake, we can do it in about 10 seconds. Wow. And we don't have to give the whole US. We can give 2 states or 50 zip codes. So cloud-based, fully linked, unlocks the data that you need and only the data you need.
Great. And then Greg, I have a question for you as well. What is the most memorable use of master payment cleansing?
Sure. So that's another tricky one as well. And I think you'd probably get different answers on that depending on who you asked at Segment. So let me start with, something that I didn't necessarily go over in the details then when I was showing the use case slide, is that with the return of the categorizations of the transaction type and the type of merchant it is with the logos, an institution in theory could build with their own technology resources their own PFM tool, right? So at the end of the day, a budgeting application could be built with the right technology purely by an institution itself, without having to go and create and have to buy it off the shelf if they wanted to. So there's certainly an extension there for the user experience in providing that logo, that cleansed transaction, being able to aggregate their spends across different categories with different merchants. For me, what I am jealous of, as I mentioned, for what Berkshire and others can do with the raw data itself, coming from the banking side, is being able to aggregate and trend the outflows of competitive payments, right? And being able to identify emerging players, those who are growing faster versus those that are, large because they're simply large, right? So like Wells Fargo and Chase may be the largest competitors for a particular product. And it can be, established relatively easy for at the transaction level by having the actual dollar amount to see what those are. But to take it a step further and look at it as what challengers, what other competing, neo fintech or, whether it's Chime or Robinhood, which ones are actually starting to grow? And that's what Berkshire will be able to do with the raw data in Snowflake with Passerell's help, is be able to start to trend some of those, changes in consumer behavior and competitive, the competitive nature in terms of what their current customers are doing.
That's great. Thank you, Greg. And it looks like we have about 5 minutes left, and we have a question for you, Bruce. And I think this is a great question because it kind of speaks to what Peter was talking about the importance of showing value to business lines for the power of adoption. And so the question is, how do you develop a game plan for a customer so that you can show that value?
Thanks, Carolyn. Our approach is to listen. So it starts with a phone call to understand what are your goals? What are you trying to achieve? Where are you struggling? Where are your challenges? And by understanding what your goals and initiatives are, we're able to formulate a game plan. Our product Data Rocket was built with customers over the years. Our roots were a system integrator, experts at Talent and Snowflake and Tableau. And we've built a product based on hearing from our customers what they need to go fast. We want to accelerate. We don't want to spend a lot of time, money, and effort in operational areas that can be tackled with a product to let us go fast. Our employees are valuable. We want to focus them on higher value items for the bank. So it starts with understanding where are you at in your data journey, what challenges are you facing, and starting relationships. From there, we can we will coordinate in the right resources to formulate the best solution for you to help you go where you need to go with Data Rocket. If it's diving in deep on the segment data set to add in the merchant cleanse data to learn about cash flowing out of the bank and see patterns there and drive revenue, grabbing market share, knowing 20 million is leaving the bank every month for competitive student loans. We want to grab some of that with our own. Again, we will facilitate lead coordinating discussion with segment. Same with Equifax. You want to take your core banking customers, add the net worth, understand who are your top 10% of your customers that are the most affluent to maybe target for wealth management or drive cash inflows from. I will coordinate in meetings with our friends at Equifax. And again, we're resellers of Snowflake, resellers of Talent. We're strategic contractual partners with Equifax and Segment. So we will be one throat to choke to shape one solution with a budget to address whatever your needs are. But it starts with a call to talk about what are your needs and how can we help.
Great, thanks, Bruce. So unless there are any more questions, which I don't see any more coming in, I am going to just take this opportunity one more time to thank you, Peter, for your time and your energy and sharing your story at Berkshire Bank. You have such a great story to tell. I think I speak for everyone on this phone call and our partners at Talent and at Snowflake that we are so happy to be part of your journey, and we can't wait to see what you are going to accomplish in the next 3 years. And we're very happy to be your partner, and we appreciate your time.
Yeah, the feeling's mutual. You know, like I said, we couldn't do it without you guys. We really appreciate all of you.
Yeah, thank you. So I think there was a lot of great conversation today about the power of partnership and the power of great data. I will be following up with people on this call with more information about Data Rocket and about our technology partners that are part of Data Rocket and that were on this call today. And please let us know if you would like to talk about your digital transformation and how we can help. Thank you everyone for attending. I really appreciate it.